Hey everybody, welcome to Garden Time with Belle. Well, do you have one of those frustrating garden spots that gets blazing hot morning sun, but by mid-afternoon and beyond, it's in full shade? Most plants hate those conditions. However, in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to solve those tricky spots in your garden. And the way I want to show you today how to do that is I'm going to be taking you along as I plant up this big container. I call this my deck box. Sits here on our exposed deck and has those exact light conditions. What it's all about is really finding solutions through plant choice. And in today's video, I am going to show you what kind of plants are going to go in this deck box that do equally well in bright sun or full shade. So before we head down to the greenhouse to select those plants that are going to go in the garden box, I'm going to invite everybody out there to please like and subscribe to my channel. Doing that helps me grow my channel. It helps me meet more wonderful gardeners just like you. And if you're new to YouTube and you haven't noticed, there's a little bell icon. If you click on that bell, that's the notification bell. And all that will do is each time you open your YouTube app, you'll see any of my new videos up there for you to watch so you don't miss any of the content. So enough talk, we're going to go down to the greenhouse and I'm going to show you the plants that are going in this box. All right, made it to the greenhouse. I went ahead and set up a table and got my supplies together and got some water and took off my shirt that I had on a little bit ago because, of course, inside the greenhouse, it's a lot warmer than it is outside. So got to stay hydrated while we garden, right? So what I want to show you all is something I'm going to need to do with one of the plants that I'm going to put in that deck box. And I am going to repurpose this English ivy that has been here all winter long. And last year, as you might recall, if I can find a picture, I had this ivy in my tall planters right on either side of my garage as a spiller, and wow, did it spill. It grew all the way to the ground. But if you recall, the deck box that you just saw during the opening, it has this big trellis behind it, and I have been racking my brain to find something that I can train up the trellis. And for the longest time, I was being a little bit stubborn and I was wanting to have a flowering vine. And I tried last year to grow, Mandevilla, and it didn't do that great. Mandevilla really likes a lot more sun. And remember, this is sun and then shade. And so I don't think it was the right spot for Mandevilla. And Mandevilla is, where I live, just an annual. So I thought, I want something more permanent. I also thought about clematis or clematis. But you know what? I said, I have bought so many plants for this garden season. I want to repurpose something I already have. And so dawned on me just about a week ago. I'm like, why not this ivy? So I'm going to grab this big, heavy pot filled with 2 ivy plants. Whoa! I'm going to bring it down here and I am going to get it out of this container in here, and I'm going to try to split it in half and probably clean it up a little bit because it's got some, dead spots because it's been in here. So this ivy, I would say, is probably, this is its 3rd year between being outside and in my greenhouse. So, they are vigorous. And so before I go any further, English ivy is a thug. It is highly aggressive grower, but in the right conditions, you can tame it. And the best modification to keep it under control is to grow it in a container. And that's exactly what we're going to do. It's going to be in that container on the deck, and I'm going to train it up the trellis. And then if it gets out of hand, I'm just going to keep trimming and pruning it back. And I think it's going to give a beautiful green screen. If I bring the camera in close, and maybe I'll do that in a minute since the camera's over there. What I also love about this particular ivy is it's variegated. So it's a lovely green and the edges are a creamy white color. So first things first, grab my gloves. I've got my hory knife. I've got to get this out of its container and take a look at what we've got to work with. But as I said, this is 2 plants. And maybe I'll just grab that camera, I'll pull it in close and point it down here so you can see what I'm doing. I usually complain about super windy days because it's really hard to work outside for hours in the wind. But here in the greenhouse, I'm really glad it's windy because it's given me a little bit of reprieve. I've got all the windows open. and I'm feeling that. So if you're seeing my plants blowing around in the wind, yeah, the wind is fierce today. But up on the deck where we're going to be working in just a little bit, it's out of the direct path of the wind. So hopefully, not only will it be fun for me to work in that location, but also you all will be able to hear me and the audio won't be horrible. All right. Let's see how hard or easy. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Look at that. Oh my gosh, I'm so delighted. That came out far easier than I expected. All right, let's take a look and see what we've got here. So if we look, we can plainly see this is one plant and this is two plants. All right, you see how we've got some stems coming here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hoary hoary, and I've done this before to this plant. As I said, English ivy, it's a thug. It is one tough cookie. And so it's quite easy to cut right through it, just like so. All right, so I've got my two plants. My deck box is 4 foot wide, and I'm not quite sure how tall the trellis is. I haven't really measured it. I think it's like 5 foot tall, maybe 6. I can't remember. But what I'm going to do before I show you the other plants, I'm just going to take after this ivy, and if there's any, dead spots, I'm going to trim that up with my pruners, and then I'll show you what else I'm going to be planting. All right, so the English ivy is going to get planted, and I'm going to have it trained up that big trellis. But what's going to go in the box? These 3 varieties. First up, and these are going to go in the center, so I have 2 of them, Wicked Witch Coleus by Proven Winners. Why did I pick this? Well, first of all, it's gorgeous, and I love coleus, as you know. I have lots of videos about coleus, so take a look at that. I put it in the sunshine for you all so you can see the deep, deep dark leaves with this beautiful chartreuse lime green edging. So pretty. So, number 1, it's beautiful. Number 2, these coleus are bred to do equally well in sun or shade. So that tricky garden spot I've got up on my deck, these should do really well with those conditions. Let me tell you some more specs about Wicked Witch. It gets 24 to 40 inches tall and possibly 24 inches wide. She gets big. I've seen other gardeners grow her. I've seen them in videos. In the landscape, she can get huge, but this deck box, as you saw, is pretty darn big too. So there's a lot of soil that's going to be around it to grow in and send out roots. So I expect she'll probably grow really well this year. And let me give you a bonus tip, everybody. If you love coleus as much as I do, you need to invest in 1 plant or as many as you want. But remember, you can propagate from coleus. It is the easiest thing to do. I remember for years, I never tried it. I thought, what, that's for fancy gardeners. I do not know how to do that. I started propagating coleus about 3 years, and I'll take 1 plant and turn it into many. And I have a whole video. I'll make sure I link that in the description below on how simple it is to take cuttings from your coleus or from your beautiful zonal geraniums and turn them into tons of plants. It's simple. I'll show you really quick though what I did with this Wicked Witch when I bought it a few days ago after I brought it home. I simply took snips or cuttings off of the top, put them in water. They need to be in a sunny spot in water where it's warm, and in 2, maybe 3 weeks, I'm going to see lots and lots of root growth. At that point, I'm going to pot them up, let them grow on a little bit more, and then at that point, they're going out in my garden. It could not be easier. Having said all that, let me share a disclaimer. Some plant companies are, it's not, maybe it's a trademark they have because they create plants. They are plant breeders, and they have really strict rules about propagating their plants. However, the strict no-no would be if I were going to take these cuttings, turn them into plants, and sell them as a commercial enterprise and claim that that's my plant. For the average home gardener like you and I, it is perfectly fine to propagate plants like that. But if you plan to sell it, even on eBay, that would be a big no-no. So take that for what that's worth. Thought I would share that. Okay, so Wicked Witch coleus is going to get big and full in the center. And then on either side of each coleus, I picked another proven winner's plant that does equally well in sun and shade, Surefire Rose Begonia. It has won apparently 10 awards. Now, it doesn't look like much right now, but it will. And let's look at the stats. So it's supposed to get 12 to 24 inches tall. So these babies can get really big and really full. Spacing max 18 inches. So imagine if this plant got 2 feet tall and a foot or so wide, that's going to be a gorgeous plant. So you've got, I'll just set it up how I'm going to actually place them. So I'm going to have the Wicked Witch coleus in the center because they're going to get tall and big. And then the next biggest in size are these Surefire Rose Begonias. Okay, and they're going to be stepped down a little bit. And then in the front corners of the box, I wanted a spiller, and I chose your basic Creeping Jenny. And let's see what this says here. 3 to 6 hours of morning sun. Perfect. And what's the average size? The average height is 6 to 8 inches tall, and the width it gets, or length, is 18 to 24 inches long or wide. So I think that these on the front corners, I mean, what do you think? I like that. I love how the chartreuse Creeping Jenny will play off the chartreuse edges of the coleus. We've got different textures and different colors, different leaf structure for sure. This is that begonia that's high and glossy with a little bit of color. And then you've got these. So I think that's going to be an interesting combination. So all that's left for me to do is gather these up, get back on my scooter, head up to the deck box and get this and my repurposed ivy planted. All right, the first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to plant up the ivy. And I was thinking as I was coming from the greenhouse over here, how I want to secure it. Ivy typically doesn't need any supports in terms of to tie it to a structure like you have to do with other kinds of vining things because it's pretty vigorous. But so I think first I'm going to dig in a couple holes, put them in, and then I think I'm going to try to just weave these individual vines through the lattice and try to cover as much of it as I can. And if that doesn't work, I grabbed some just garden twine and scissors in case I have to secure them until they get established, and then I can probably get rid of it. So I think that's going to be my approach. So I got to grab my gloves, dig a couple holes, and sorry I have to film this way. You know, it's up against a wall, and that's hard for you all to see because I'm going to have my back to you when I train this up the trellis, but you'll get the idea. So this is going to take the longest amount of time, is training all these different vines up the trellis, but it is worth doing. So I better get after it. Oh, yes. And what am I putting in the holes? I am going to use biotone in the planting holes for the ivy. And I probably should go grab my slow release fertilizer for the flowering plants, but I'll do that when I get to them. So, all right, let's do it. Again, as you know, I talk about soil and I talk about the fact that big, huge containers like the aqua pots I recently potted up on the video and something this large I do not swap out the soil every year. No way. It is not necessary, but I do top off the upper third to a fourth with fresh compost. And in this case, I topped it off the other day with some leftover raised bed mix that we used on our raised bed garden. We added some more boxes this year to the veggie garden, and we had a lot left over, which has been great. So I have been using that as my amendment in a lot of my containers, but also in different spots in the garden. So anyhow, that is what I'm thinking. So I'm just going to make a spot for each one of these. All right, so that was a little tedious, but I did it. And so I thought I'd bring the camera in a little bit closer for you to kind of get a better view. So what I discovered that's working is I am going to tie up these main vines, and then I'm weaving their lateral vines through the lattice. So I think that works certainly on the first one. So I think I'll follow the same method on this one. But of course, you know, they're a tangle right now, so just trying to figure that out. Get them untangled and then get the main vine secured and then weave the lateral branches through the trellis. So that's my plan. Let's see if I can execute it. So weaving the English ivy through the trellis and trimming it and getting it to connect took more time than I thought it would, but that's okay. I just thought, you know what? Just slow down and take your time because it's going to pay off. I think I spent probably a good 30 minutes doing that, but I'm glad I did it. Okay, so all that is left are planting our beautiful sun or shade annuals. So I'm going to pop them in where I think I want to put them. We talked about this in the greenhouse. So the Wicked Witch coleus gets very big and tall. So I think it's going to go right here in the center. And then on either side, the beautiful Surefire Rose begonias. They get a little bit less tall. And then I think in each corner, some beautiful creeping Jenny. They're going to go right here. So let me think about it again in terms of spacing. I think I'm going to space these out further. Yeah, because really this can get 18 inches wide. So this will fill this whole space in. So I think I'll set the Surefires back a little bit because the coleus really will fill in nicely. And so yeah, so that's all I got to do. I'm going to dig my holes, and instead of the biotone that I put in the holes for the English ivy, I am going to use the slow release Proven Winners continuous plant food, especially great for annuals and especially great for flowering annuals. So that's all that is left. This is the easy part. All right, we'll start on this end. And this soil is so nice and fluffy that, oh, it's just a pleasure to grow in, honestly. Easy, easy. So 1 scoop in each hole ought to do the trick. Well, this was a fun and easy garden project. I thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you stayed through the rest of the video to see the final results. And I hope today's video, some of you can relate to that. I bet you have places on your property around your house that get both sun and shade. And so knowing which plants do equally well in both of those conditions is a great strategy. And I think, based on my research, the plants that are in here are going to fit that requirement. So anyhow, the only thing that is left for me to do is to really give this a good long drink. This container is not on drip irrigation, so I will be hand watering it. However, because it's 4 feet long and 2 feet deep and there's a ton of soil, I don't really have to water it all that often, because the more soil you have in a container, the better it holds on to moisture. So that's all that's left for today. So I'm going to grab my watering can and give these new plants a drink to get them settled in. And until next time, I'm going to wish everybody out there happy gardening.